What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 78 of the Steam Deck Podcast, Flipscreen Games weekly podcast, all about Valve's portable PC powerhouse, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Peter Messi, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Steven Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve. Welcome back, man.
Yeah, good to be back. I mean, I think I only missed one of these, haven't I? I wasn't here the week before last, or has it been
So
a couple?
I think what happened was Max and I did one without you. You and Max did one without me. Then
Yeah, that
Max
was
and I
it.
didn't. So
Yeah,
like you and I
yeah.
have not sunk up on this in a minute.
Back to the original team.
Yeah, and it's of course we miss Max, but yeah, we got the original
We mix
dynamic
we
duo
mix
here.
Matt. Yeah.
We mix. Anyway, we've got a real a real classic episode for you today, right? We got the original dynamic duo. We are just jumping into the Steam docket today, answering a bunch of questions from y'all. One of which we've been sitting on for months now. It feels like maybe it's only been a couple weeks, but this question from Six Shot Ocelot is one that I think we even read on the show to say we're going to talk about this in a couple weeks when we got space as a main topic. I'm excited to finally get into this one. So they wrote in however long ago and said, what do you think 2024 will bring in terms of the Steam Deck interface/UI, new features, peripherals, new mods, etc.? And what do you want 2024 to bring in terms of the Steam Deck? And then same list of things. So essentially, it is a kind of, I guess, what do we realistically think will happen when it comes to the Steam Deck this year, whether that's on the hardware or software side of things, and then in a dream scenario, what are the things that we'd like to see come across the bow this year? This is a great question. It's one that we've been sitting on for a while because I think we
Yeah.
knew we would want to talk about it for a while. So I guess, where do you want to start? Is it more fun to start with what we think's realistic and then go crazy, or do we start with the crazy stuff?
I think, Pete, we start with the fact that I really wanted iFixit to stock OLED parts, and they've finally done it. You can
This
get
week,
them. So, quick PSA: if you've somehow broken your OLED, you can now go repair it yourself if you don't want to send it to Valve, which is
there
good.
you go.
But after that, I think, I don't know, maybe we start realistically and then go bananas.
Okay. Okay. Because I think the reason I ask is because I think the quote unquote bananas ones, the ones that I want to see, but I'm not confident will happen, are so much easier to rattle off because they're similar to what we've talked about in recent years. Whereas I think in terms of what's realistic, I guess I don't have a great front runner this year like I did last year. Because I felt like last year there was a lot of we were building towards SteamOS 3.5, and we had a lot of thoughts about what that might look like. There was the rumors of the new headset that we were talking about. So there were like things that I felt like either had momentum or I thought might come to fruition last year that either have and, have maybe not lived up to our expectations in some ways and have in others. And then, with the VR thing, I think that is a whole deeper conversation of does that hardware even ever come out now? Who knows, right? The
Yeah.
conversation is a lot different this year than it is at the start of last year when you look at how volatile it feels like the industry is this year and how a lot of companies are, I think, not necessarily looking to take big swings and do things that are,
Mhm.
and not to say that Valve is a company that's risk averse inherently, right? I think the Steam Deck was a gamble, but the idea of them maybe deciding that it's not worth putting out another VR headset right now is doesn't seem crazy to me, So when I think about
I kind of feel like if they're the ones best poised to put out a VR headset, they kind of own the PC VR space. I think if they did a standalone headset, you could play Half-Life Alyx on it, maybe
Sure.
somehow ties in with the Steam Deck. I could see that being a really exciting proposition. Whether I think that's going to happen or not is another thing. I could see it. Um, I don't necessarily know if that is kind of intrinsically linked to the Steam Deck. But I think you're right though. It very much feels different than last year, and I think that's for a couple of reasons. The handheld PC market's really been established now. There's been other players came into the
Yeah.
mix. Obviously, we saw the ROG Ally was really the first big name from ASUS last year. And then we got a bunch of others like the Lenovo Legion Go. We've got some more from Ioneo. There's probably going to be a bunch more on the way. We've got the new one from MSI coming. So there's a lot of
You know,
the space has really kind of come together, and we
there's been
also
that
had the
rumor too
updated
of,
OLED model.
sorry, and then there's been the rumor of Xbox potentially throwing its hat in that
Yeah,
ring at some point too, right?
well, and we had the if you count the PS Portal as well, which is done. They reported this week is done better than they imagined. People are really interested in handheld gaming again in a really big way, and I think that is in large part to the Steam Deck and it proving itself as this is a viable market opportunity for OEMs.
I think it proved that there was a market for niche products in that space, right? That like the because I think the conventional wisdom, right, for a while was that handheld gaming was in decline, right? And that like the DS was a real peak point, and then you saw the 3DS, while successful, not as successful, and there was all this conversation about like have phones and tablets kind of cannibalize that market
I
that
mean,
used
that
to
was the
exist.
same era where there wasn't going to be another console, right? Like it was going to
Right.
be this is the end of the generation. So I think it's really interesting that we're in a completely different space. Like the Steam Deck's now an established product. I don't think we're going to get another one this year. I think that OLED really is the definitive model of that version of the Steam Deck. Maybe we get Steam Deck 2 next year, but I don't think we're going to get anything new this year. So that the kind of work that they were putting in to launch the OLED model with their stuff with the HDR pipeline and obviously all of the additional work that went into developing that hardware, that's kind of been done, and they've cleared the docket now so that they can work on whatever is next. I mean, there's a bunch of things, right? They said, I think, openly that the SteamOS 3.5 installer and it potentially coming to other devices was kind of put on ice because they were spending all of this time and all this work working on the Steam Deck OLED model. So I'd love to see 2024 finally be the time that we get an open source version of SteamOS and we kind of see the ability to install that on other devices because Ioneer was going to, and then they kind of backtracked on it because it turned out it was actually Hollow ISO, which people weren't really happy about. And then there was going to be a whole thing where you had to install Steam manually because they wouldn't necessarily have a license for it. Yada yada yada. You can listen to the episode where we had Bob Wolf from the Wolf Den on, where you guys covered that, which is a great
Great
episode.
episode.
Um, I think it's going to be an interesting 2024 for them. But I'm interested what you really want from the Steam Deck itself. Like, are you happy with where you are now? Is there anything you feel like you're missing? Obviously, we've spoken ad nauseum about the docked experience, and I know that's probably going to come up yet again. Um, but I don't necessarily know that I really care much about that anymore.
I would say that is one of the things that comes to mind for me for sure. I think because you mentioned we had the kind of soft confirmation, I guess, right? That SteamOS 3.5 becoming a broader application kind of launcher is something that they have plans for, and it kind of was supposed to be done last year, and it just other projects took precedent. Or I'm sorry, not precedent. What's what I'm looking for there? Priority. And
Priority.
which yeah, which fair enough, right? But I think that to me also feels really similar to what happened with the docking station, where the docking station, I think there was kind of a lot of excitement for it and it was delayed. And when it came out, it didn't meet expectations fully, but I think it showed a lot of promise. And, we felt very optimistic that the experience would improve. And it has improved like broadly, but I think it also is something that has a long way
I
to.
don't necessarily think it has really. Like, it's a solid hardware product, but the software's still fundamentally the same. There's still the same issues where I've got if I wanna do a higher resolution than the internal screen, I've gotta make sure that I do that
Right.
before I even open the game in the SteamOS interface, which is just a pain. Like, it should automatically detect what screen it's connected to and allow me to pick that in game. We should be able to have
Yeah,
multiple config files for games. There's a whole bunch of things that I think could be improved. I still have the
absolutely.
issue when I connect a controller that the controller list, otherwise that external controller doesn't work, and I have to like get up and do it. And it got to the point where I just stopped using the dock entirely because it's just like this is just so much effort and so much hassle. I might as well just play them handheld.
Yeah, and I think the bit I'm talking about that like they have improved is like I think a lot of the some of the like just issues, right, that came out when like even when we were reviewing it, right, where like there were troubles with like connections and black screens and stuff like that. I think a lot of those issues are just not as frequent as they used to be, and I think it's a little more a user friendly experience now than at launch. But for that to be the only changes that were made and all of those things that you just highlighted, right, like still not being figured out is a real bummer for me. And I think similar to what you said with the 3.5 thing is like I'd love to see them kind of like shift away from iterating on hardware and like some of the efforts that they put a lot of effort towards like marketing it as well and like getting it in front of more people and I think that was all time and effort and resources well spent, but I would love to see them kind of turn that attention now back towards I think more consistent iteration on things like the OS experience and the docked experience and kind of giving us some of the functionality that I think, you know, anybody that has the dock, right? Like, I think would probably agree that that's something that they would like to see, right? You want to just have that kind of seamless, Switch like
You want the
experience of
Switch
like,
experience, the Nintendo's
yeah.
yeah. You want
Yeah, I think we got a little
and
delay going
I
on
don't
here,
know that
but
that's
yes.
yeah. I don't know that that's gonna come though, like, it's, is it priority for them? They've probably already looked at the number, but is it like an empty dance floor scenario that no one's really using it because the experience isn't there, and if the experience is there, they would use it? I don't know. Um, Maybe the majority of Steam Deck owners also have a gaming PC. They're doing their gaming on the PC and they're taking the Steam Deck on the go, and that might be the reason why they've not really focused all that much on it. But there's a real question for me.
I think to me it does feel like a dance floor like the empty dance floor situation where I think if we were to see them put more effort into improving that experience and then pushing it and being like, hey, like, like we've improved the docked experience. Maybe it gets like a slight price cut or they just do like a limited sale on it or something. And they could,
Mhm.
um, push it the way that they pushed big picture mode when it first came out, right? Like that's a thing that like they came out with and it was an okay experience. And then it took a really long time for them to iterate on it and kind of get it to where it is now, where it is better. And that's like kind of what the Steam Deck was built on, right? Is kind of that experience. So it's like, I don't know. I wouldn't say that it's too late. I wouldn't say that you should assume that they've like given up or it's not a prior. Like, I wouldn't say it's like a top priority clearly because they haven't done it, right? But I don't think that that means that there's no universe where that effort does get put in because they see that there's an opportunity to, you know, um, I don't want to say expand the market, but I guess expand the use case of the device, which I think is ultimately something that they obviously care about, right? Like they put out that product in the first place. You would hope that it's something that they would care about iterating on. But I think to me, like that's a lot of the name of the game for what I'm looking for this far into the device's life cycle is like, I don't think
It's
it's about,
refinements at this point.
yeah.
You don't need anything game changing. It's like make small refinements. Before we move on from hardware though, because I know we're talking about the dock at the moment. There's a couple of hardware pieces that I think I both of us would probably agree on that we'd like. I loved the limited edition run that they did of the Steam Deck. Wasn't available outside of the US. I'd love them to do some more limited edition colorways, like do something maybe to celebrate like an anniversary or whatever.
Or, like,
On the
not
Steam Deck
limited edition
birthday.
colorways, like, there
Yeah,
being, like, a design lab, like
that
Xbox,
would be
right?
so
Like, that
cool,
would be
yeah.
so sick if you even if it was limited, right? But just, like, being able to be like, "Oh, like, I want a red back," or "I want," you know I want two-tone buttons or something like that. Like,
Yeah, because like, you see people doing it with, like, the JSORC stuff, right? Or the other kinda companies that are doing these, like, Steam Deck buttons now, but
yeah.
I don't wanna be the one who's kind of tearing it all down and piecing it apart and then putting it all back together. Because as much as I am a tinkerer, I don't wanna break a device that costs, 500 quid, like, that's a big expense to have to kinda pay.
I think it like it limits that level of customization to people who are not just tinkerers, but also, like, uh, handy, you know? Like,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
it's 2 whole big skill sets that you need to have to really be able to do that with, like, confidence, and it's not to say that you can't learn, right? Like, I'm sure you could learn, right? Like, you probably have the skill set you need to do it, but it's like, man, yeah, it's like you said, I don't wanna risk busting open my OLED Steam Deck and breaking it just because I wanted to put a cool case on it or whatever, right? Like it just doesn't seem worth it, right? Whereas like I love the limited edition that I got. I was like so pleased with that design and I'm like I'm really happy with it now. I don't want something different. And I think like yeah, like
I
limited
think other
edition
options would be cool. Like,
yeah,
do you like the fantastic kind of treatment that the N64 got and bring it over to the
right?
to the OLED? Like, I think that'd be so cool.
And I mean, like, I think to your point, like, if you did do, like, very limited runs of them where it was, like, maybe, like, every Steam sale, right? Like, the winter, summer, spring, like, you get, like, a different design, like, every
Yeah.
and it could be, like, a cool, like, "Oh, man, if I've been thinking about getting a Steam Deck, and they made this really cool design they're only gonna have right now, and they're never gonna print it again." Like, that's how you get people in, you know? People who are, like, on the fence and just need that, like, tiny little they just need a medium-sized gust of wind to knock them over, like, that's exactly the kind of thing that I think gets people to bite, right? Like,
Oh,
that
yeah,
was a
definitely. I mean, you
huge
see that with
motivator
the
for me to upgrade, right? Where I was like,
I mean,
"Okay,
yeah, yeah.
I wanted one
You
anyway. This is the
you
excuse I needed."
you've seen that with the Switch and with the PS4 Pro and, like, you do those special editions, like, you bought the Spider-Man version, people will buy them, and collectors will probably buy multiple of them. But continuing on the hardware front, I mean, and the limited edition, like I said, was only available in the USA. When is the Steam Deck gonna launch in more countries? Like, I know they moved into Asia with the help of, I think it was Komodo last year.
Yeah.
It'd be great to see them expand into places like the Pacific, like, down in the oceanic region, like
Australia,
Australia,
there's
New
so many
Zealand.
people that are there that talk about wanting to get a deck, and it's just you just can't. I mean, you can, but you
Yeah.
gotta go through third parties and,
Yeah,
there's
and then it's like a pain in the ass if something goes wrong. There's no real repair, centers or anything that you can go through. It really is a risk to buying something on the grey market. And I know we've had listeners who've written in and said that they've done the exact same thing, that they've bought them and they've been nothing but happy with them. And they do work on, like, it's not like they're restricted and they don't work on an Australian
no.
Steam account. Like, you can buy
No,
them, but
it's just like I think it's like you said, there's a risk associated with it, and it's like not even probably a high percentage of risk, right? Because it's like think about how many people there are in our community, and like how many people like you personally know that I personally know that own a Steam Deck, that own multiple Steam Decks, and you're the only person I've known that's had to send one in, and it was only because you had a launch unit and you wanted to get rid of that shitty fan, right? Like it's like it's not like it's not
no,
like
it wasn't the fan I had a problem with. My trackpad vibrated like
oh,
crazy.
right. I forgot that
Yeah.
that was the yeah, the trackpad. Okay. Did they also replace the fan while it was there?
No, I replaced the fan myself. I
You
bought a
replaced the
part on
fan. Okay.
iFixit and, replaced it 'cause it had the really, really
Apologies.
noisy, Delta fan.
So point being though, right? Like of everybody I know that owns a Steam Deck, you're the only one that had a issue that like required it to be sent in. I'm
Yeah.
sure other people in the community have maybe talked about it here or there, but like it's not a common thing, you know? Sure, you see it on the Steam Deck subreddit a lot, but it's like that's the place you go when you have a problem like that. You post about it and be like, anybody else seen this? Like, what do I do? Like so, but even so, it seems like the margin of error on these guys, right? The fail rate doesn't seem to be very high. So it's like, yeah, I'm sure you could be an Australian and or a New Zealander and buy one and
Mhm.
you'll probably be fine. But if it's not, then it's like, well, what do you do, right? If you don't have the skill set to buy a part on iFixit and replace it yourself.
Or you have to find a local repair shop that's, willing to do it for you, but potentially at great expense. It's no longer under warranty. It's not like you can send it in. So that is a risk. And I would like to see them launch them in more countries. And similarly, I think it's about time that these make it into more stores. I know they're in like Acer stores in Japan or Korea, but they're not in stores in the
It
West.
was
Like,
yeah, it was, in Taiwan as well, right? I think it was Taiwan,
yeah,
South Korea, and Japan all have them in store, but there's none I don't think in any region outside of Asia can you buy it in store.
no, versus like you can go into Best Buy or in the US or Currys in the UK, and you can buy an ROG Ally, and they're on display there. You kind of
Yeah.
get a feel, and I can imagine walking in and going, "Wow, okay, I can play Red Dead Redemption 2 on this. I can play GTA on this. I've been wanting to play this handheld. Can't play them on the Switch that I got, but if I buy this thing, I can." And I think a lot of people probably do just walk into those stores and pick
Yeah.
them up,
I mean, it would be
and
great if
maybe
you
don't
could get
necessarily know what they're getting into.
it would be great if you could get a new one at GameStop. Right? Because it's like obviously they have like the refurbished models and everything, but we did a whole episode on why that's not a very good deal. So like the idea that you could have s- whether it's Best Buy, GameStop, Target, whatever, right? Like any of
Yeah.
the retailers
Some
that
kind of
have,
distribution chain, yeah, that's what you need, or Amazon.
yeah. I mean that's probably the big one, right?
Let's get it on Amazon, next day delivery, you buy one, it's here, it's a impulse purchase, maybe you got some Amazon credit, maybe you've got one of those, like, Amazon
Yeah, I don't know.
cards or whatever.
I maybe they just don't want to because it's like I feel like when you're talking about them partnering with physical, like, brick and mortar stores in Asia, like, I feel like that made
That's
more
really Komodo doing that, and you're cutting and I know they'll be cutting into their potential profits, and they're probably pretty
right.
slim margins on the Steam Deck
Right.
itself
So it's
anyway,
kinda
so
like,
it could be
is it
that's
really
why.
worth it for there to be a display in a store that you can see the Steam Deck and maybe you buy it as an impulse purchase, but then that percentage is just it's not as good a return, right? Whereas, like, with Komodo, right, like, it's like they are not selling it in that region and they're trying to, like, they're trying to establish a market there, right? Because like we said, like, PC gaming, um, in Japan is, like, a thing that's, like, gained a lot of, steam in the no pun intended, in the last couple of years. Um, so it's like it's still a new thing. It's still a thing that they're, like, training, you know, gamers over there to, like, get into the ecosystem and, like, obviously handheld gaming is really popular in Japan, so, like, the Steam Deck is a great fit there, and, like, the idea that, like, you partner with a recognizable brand like Komodo that can put the device in front of your target audience who is
Mhm.
not gonna go on Steam, right? To me
Well,
made
and also they've got the connections throughout all of Asia. You don't have to make the connections in Japan, Korea, Hong Kong,
right,
Taiwan.
exactly.
You've done them for
That
already, and you're not shipping directly.
that totally makes sense to me. Like, why, given what they're trying to do in that region, why they would partner with a brand that's already, you know, established there, and that can bring people in the door. Whereas, like, Steam already has kind of like a de facto, I don't wanna say monopoly, but, like, they are the PC game storefront, and I think the idea that, like, you know, they need, like, Best Buy or whatever, right, to, like, be the thing that gets it in people's hands is I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know how much of an impact that really has, and is it worth the cut that they're gonna take for it to be in those places. I think when we talked about it previously, like, I did think about that, but it's like you look at just like it's been steadily selling and steadily growing, and it's just like, I don't know, like, I don't know that it needs that. I don't know that it's worth it for them to
Other countries, I think, would be worth it. Opens up a big audience, especially a
I
country as
that I
large as
agree with.
Australia.
Yeah, and if you
But yeah,
need to
maybe in
partner
stores it doesn't.
and if you need to partner with a local distributor in, like, the Oceanic region for the same reason of, like, doing business there is, something that would, like, require an amount of effort and investment from Valve that's hard as, like, a smaller company, in terms of, like, people power, not finances. Um, and maybe it's the same thing where, like, you partner with a established electronics company that operates in Australia and New Zealand, and, like, you do the same kinda thing, right? And it's just like that's how you get it in more places, but, like, it's already available, widely available in America and Europe and,
Yeah.
these other markets, right? So it's like, I could see that maybe in South America too, because, like, obviously, you know, there's like a big community of gamers in like places like
I think always the
Brazil, and
problem yeah, the problem there has always been, like, getting a
markup
hold
is
of
crazy.
yeah, it's always importing it. I think they put massive duties on anything that gets
Yeah.
imported into the country.
It's nuts. It's nuts. It's nuts, like, that was, like, why that was a big reason why the PS2 stuck around as long as it did, was that, like, it was still getting major releases because it was, like, the most popular console in, Brazil at the time because it was, like, the PS3 was insanely expensive already, right? Like, adding an import, markup on top of it was just untenable, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
I could see being a really interesting thing too, is like if you could enter, and I mean, I guess this is true about China too, right? Like if you could enter a market like um mainland China, right? Or Brazil or one of these other markets where like there are lots of gamers, but getting consoles in their hand has been historically difficult, or like because consoles haven't been in China for a long time, like there is a big PC market. So I don't know. Like I wonder if like those aren't opportunities for them to, maybe partner with, like you said, like another local kind of thing that can allow them to expand that base organically, but not necessarily have to, rely on another like brick and mortar partner in places that they're already selling
Yeah.
units,
Yeah.
right? Like they're already selling as many as they can make, right? Most of the time.
The only other place I can imagine they really wanna be is probably in China, and due to regulatory reasons, they're not there at the moment. Even Nintendo had to partner with Tencent to bring the Switch to
Yeah.
China, but that would be a huge market for them. I know Steam sort of operates in a different way in China, but they are there now, they didn't used to be. So that's a possibility. There's one other piece of hardware that I'm sure everyone listening is well aware what we want, Pete, and that is a
We're
new
both
Steam
highlighting it
controller.
at the same time. It's the Steam controller, man. Yeah. I think that would be a really cool thing, especially this year to put out because uh like we talked about like not wanting there to be another design iteration this year because it really feels like until they're ready for a Steam Deck 2, I think the OLED is just like such a perfect unit. It's like it's at a good price, it's really high quality. I think they worked out a lot of the, you know, I don't want to say kinks even, but just like they quality of life, right? It's lighter, better battery, more storage, right? Like it's just overall a better experience. And I don't see the need for them to continue to iterate. And in fact, I think if they keep iterating, you're gonna train people to be like, oh, they put one of these out every couple months. Like why would I should wait. I should wait. I should wait. Which I think
Mhm.
you don't want to do, right? You want to train people that this is like a console, right? Or like a phone or something like that, where it's like it's a big one, and then they do a halfway refresh that's a little better and it costs a little bit more, whatever. That's fine. So I think a Steam controller could be a cool way to like have a, capital A, capital NT new thing. Here's the new thing that you can get, and it works. And if you have a Steam Deck, great. It's made with the Steam Deck in mind. And if you don't, great. It's a perfect controller for your PC, right? Like, and I think that's a thing that speaks to everybody in their market. It has a really obvious Steam Deck integration between, you know, again, and like that could be another excuse for them to talk about improving the docked experience, right? And you ask me like, do I think they're moving away from that? That could be an easy thing of like, hey, like we're bringing out this new Steam controller and we've launched, a bunch of changes to the docked experience. Now you can turn on your Steam Deck when it's plugged into the dock with a controller from across the room. And here's all these other experiences that now you can take advantage of because we've updated. I think that would be awesome. That would be a really great marketing beat and it would be exciting for people that already own one. And I think it could be something that maybe motivates people that don't own one and that are like,
I also think you could maybe do a bundle with it as well, like get the dock, get the controller. It's a kind of two-in-one deal. Maybe
yeah,
you get the Steam Deck with it as well. And I also think it's a real win for people who aren't necessarily using a Steam Deck, but want a solid controller for their PC. Maybe they've got a living room PC, like I know Max did for a while. I think it's probably worthwhile them exploring that route. What about software, Pete? Because that was another one of Six Shot Ocelot's
yeah.
question. Interface and UI, new features, new mods, etc., etc. So, like, what are you kind of wanting from the Steam Deck in or Steam OS in 2024?
You know what, Steve? I'm going to answer that in just a second. But before we do that, let me remind you that this episode of the Steam Deck podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of February. For the last time, they are, well, and I guess March, maybe, because it's come out on, it's leap year. I don't know. They are, of course, Arnold
Top
J. Rimmer,
zeros.
Christopher Valence, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Assemeyer, aka Sophie, Snackago, Steve Stompy, Susan Likes Cats and also Boobies, Ty the Dude, and Wakahula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. You're all the reals to the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. Remember, if you want to go and show your support just like they did, get the show early, get a bunch of other perks and goodies. If you want to go check out some of those sister shows, if you want to write into the Steam docket, just like Six Shot Ocelot and everybody else did, who I don't even know if we're going to get to the rest of these questions because we're spending so much time on Six Shot Ocelots, which is exactly why we saved it for a main topic. You can write in and get involved in a bunch of other fun ways, like joining the Discord and keeping the conversation rolling between episodes by heading over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you will find links to all of those fun places and a lot more. However you choose to get involved, show your support, or follow along. We thank you for tuning into another episode of the Steam Deck podcast. So, when we're talking about software, I think there's a couple things that I would be interested in. One of them is quick resume. I think
Yes. I mean, I swear they spoke about this possibility near the launch. It was like you could play a game on your PC, potentially shut it down, and pick it up where you left off on your
yeah.
Steam Deck.
And
And
it's
that's
like
just like,
it
honestly, it would be game changing.
And it's like it kind of works that way with like Steam Cloud Save, right? Like it is a pretty seamless experience. But I think the thing that I always find is like when I open the deck and I like forget that I had a game open and then I go to open another game and then it's like are both open at the same time and it's like warning me that the performance is going to be bad and whatever. And it's like it would be cool if it was like able to do, and even if it was like a facsimile of like the experience on Xbox, even if it was just like 2 games at a time, right? Where it could
Oh,
be like,
yeah, but
we'll save
or
your
maybe you
point,
can
we'll
have,
put it
like,
in
an
deep sleep,
option.
and then you can just pop
Yeah.
back in. Like that would be really great, you know?
I don't know, that it probably is a hell of an engineering task to
I just
accomplish that.
don't know that it's
Um
possible. Yeah.
It's like a lot of work, but I would love to see it. Like, honestly, that is one that's on like the dream list because Quick Resume is only available on Xbox, and it really is a game-changing
It's
feature. The
so
fact that you can
good.
just like go between them, especially if you share a console with someone else, and it's like, oh, they were playing this game, I can just like shut it down, and they can kind of carry on where they left off, and it's phenomenal. It's really, really good.
And like how much
Um,
I trust it when I'm just like in the middle of a game and I'm like, I'll just turn the console off. It's fine. It'll remember where I am.
yeah, and you know it's gonna work. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I turned it off of the standby mode into like the full shutdown state. Um,
Same.
And, like, for me, it was just like it was great, yeah.
Still works too. It's crazy.
I think a big one for me is something I've wanted for a while, and I know I can accomplish this with a Decky plugin. Decky Recorder does it, but I really just wanna be able to hold down Steam and the right bumper like I can do for a like I can do for a screenshot, but I want to hold it and do a video clip recording like I can do on
Yeah.
Xbox and PlayStation and Switch. There's just been so many times where it's like, oh, that was so cool. I wish I could have captured that and then share
Definitely.
it somewhere. And because I'm playing on Steam Deck, I've not been able to. That is one thing I really think also encourages people to play games, like being able to shove that on the community tab on Steam or being able to post about it on over on X or on wherever you use it, whatever social media platform you're using these days. I think that really drives people to pick up new games and play games when they can see like all the cool stuff that's happening. I remember when like Breath of the Wild first came out, and everyone was sharing clips of that and like all the cool stuff that was going on and they were doing
Definitely.
like that kind of thing. I really think would be beneficial.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And like and having it be like a seamless kind of like you can just push a button and it works kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And
Would
it
be
just
really
saves
nice.
it to your library. You haven't got to like, do anything with it, and it just like uploads to the cloud or whatever, and then
Like
it's
yeah,
done. Dusted.
honestly what would be I think would be great would be if it worked like the and I mean like I don't want it to work exactly like this cuz the way it works now is not great, but like stick with me. A modified version of how the PlayStation app does it where like I could do that and then like upload it to the Steam app so that I could get it on my phone so that I don't have to like.
I mean, you can do that. You can do that already with screenshots. So you
But
can
yeah, but I
go to
mean like
the
with
media
video
tab.
it's yeah, like
Yeah.
that would be that's what you're looking for. Yeah, and I guess
Yeah,
that
and
is just how media works, like, with your Steam account, right? Like, anybody
mhm.
can look at that when they go to your Steam profile, but
So it'd be good, you just upload videos from that, and I think it'd be really good. I do love the thing that PlayStation does as well, where you get a trophy or an achievement, and it takes like a little screenshot of that
yeah.
section and stores it. I
When
love
it
that
works,
feature
that's
as well.
awesome.
Yeah.
How many of those I
Uh,
have where it's like, I'm like, "Oh, cool," and then it's like the pause screen because I clicked to look at look at the trophy, and it's like, "Ah, shit, whoops."
there's a few other things like that, like just quality of life features I'd love, like downloading when my Steam Deck's not on. The fact that I have to leave the screen on when I'm
Yeah,
downloading a game and, like, it's just wasting away and I'm potentially burning in on my OLED. I know OLEDs don't really do burn in like that, but, um, it would just be so nice just to be able to have it download updates in the background while it's just, like, on its dock plugged in, charging, just kinda keep everything on, like and then when you're finished doing the updates, maybe shut down, maybe turn yourself back on periodically. The same way my laptop does it. I close the lid of my laptop, it's still doing stuff, it's not fully asleep, and I'm aware of that, and maybe you have an option in there where it's like, hibernation mode or sleep mode or whatever else you wanna whatever modes they want, that I can choose that, yeah, when I turn it to sleep and I put it in my bag, I don't really care, I don't want you to do anything, I want you to fully sleep like you're doing now. But if it's plugged in at the dock, I want you to continue to be connected to the Wi-Fi. I want you to keep downloading updates and games in the background. So when I come back to my Steam Deck, I don't have to worry about checking for updates or if I'm playing a multiplayer game, like it's a mandatory update or whatever. Like, if you're playing Power Word and you can't connect, all of a sudden it's just
yeah.
it eats into your gaming time. And I feel like the Steam Deck has been such a good way for me to recuperate that gaming time when I'm busy all the time. I can steal a little bit of a moment here or there and play some games on my Steam Deck. And when there's a mandatory update, it really just kind of takes the kind of wind out of it.
So, I don't know if this is a feature, tell me if it is. Can you use the Steam app to interact with your Steam Deck when you're not at home?
No, so the only thing you can do with the Steam app or if you buy something on Steam is it will automatically show up in your library on your Steam Deck, it'll show up there, but you can't, as far as I'm aware, unless the Steam Deck is on, initiate a download on there.
Right.
While the
Like,
Steam Deck's in sleep mode, you can't do anything.
that would be ideal, right? Is I think that level of, like, you could have turn off sleep mode, and then, like, if you wanna call it, like, some like, sleep with downloads or like, whatever, call it something else so that it's very clear. Um, I think that would be great, right? If you could just kinda put it, like, half asleep and that it's, if a game that you have on it gets an update, it can download it. If there's, if you wanna turn on auto updates for, like, the OS or something like that, it could do that. That would be great. But again, like, being able to trigger it where I'm like, "Okay, I know my Steam Deck is at home, it's on the dock, it's plugged in," right? So it's definitely charged, definitely has power, and I have it in half sleep mode, we'll call it, just for now. And I can be like, "Oh, you know, Pal World got a new update or whatever, right? Like, let me jump on and install that so that when I get home, it's ready to play, right?" Or like,
Yeah.
"Oh, like I decided I'm gonna get into Baldur's Gate tonight, but I know that it's like a 90 gigabyte download. I'll buy it and I'll set it to install while I'm at work, and then when I come home, it'll be installed." Right? Like,
Yeah, like, the Baldur's Gate's a perfect example. I had to end up, like, just plugging it in and leaving my Steam Deck on completely overnight and then come back to it. It's just like, oh, it's just like a whole thing, and it's just a pain. Like, you wanna be able to treat it like a console. I know it is a handheld PC, but the fact that it has such a console-like experience,
most of the
I
time it
kind of
does let
expect the
you.
things from it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that phenomenon you and I've discussed about with, like, VR, where it's like, uh, when you have that, like, immersion breaking moment of, like, "Oh, it feels so real. Oh, but I can't open this door. Like, I can't touch this thing. I can't," like, whatever, and then you're like, "Right, this isn't real," right? And your brain, like, has that moment.
Yeah.
Like, I have
It's
that with
pain.
the Steam Deck where I'm like, "Oh, it does anything I want it to until it doesn't," and then you're like, "Fuck, I can't do that way? That's annoying." And it's like, whatever, right? Like, it's like, more often than not, it lets you do whatever you want, but
These are very much all, like, quality of life things that you want. It's not
it's
a
how you
case
could
of,
make something
like
I already really enjoy spending my time
yeah.
on even better and, like, monopolize more of my gaming time, I think, where it's like Because like again, right? Like if they didn't improve the docked experience, I think there's a lot more games I would buy on the deck just because I'd be like, oh, cool. If I want to play it on the TV, I can, you
Mhm.
know? Whereas like I'll do the opposite and be like, well, I'll get it on PlayStation. If I want to play it handheld, I'll stream it to my deck. But I think there's a lot of games I'd probably buy in the other direction because, they run fine on deck and but it's like I don't want to go through the extra step of changing my settings every time I plug it in. So I don't. And it's like just I think those little kind of options, right? Like those little quality of life things that make something that, yeah, you can do, but it takes a few minutes be a thing that you just plug it in and it works, or you flip a switch and it works is like that's what we're looking for, right? It's iteration on systems that are already pretty strong and just making them even more user friendly and even more, something that I can kind of like explain to a normie and be like, "Oh yeah, you just go in this menu and press this button and it works." And it's like,
Yeah.
"Okay,
Yeah, and like there's a lot of things like that. Like I'd love to see it better integrated with Discord, for example. Like, why can I
yeah,
connect my Xbox and my PlayStation to Discord and see my not only just like see my friends list, but it'll also allow me to have an audio chat with them. And I get that Steam's got its own thing and it works really well and I use it all the time. But my friends are on Discord and
options."
they're potentially on another platform playing the same game. Helldivers 2 is a perfect example, right? If I want to partner up with people, I wanna be able to hear them and talk to them and speak to my friends who might be playing on PlayStation.
Mhm.
And I love the everyone loves the Discord feature where it shows you what game you're playing in Discord. So you can log on, you can see your friends, you can go, "Oh, Max is playing Helldivers 2 right now. I wanna play
You jump
Helldivers 2.
in.
I'm gonna go message Max and I'll join him and we'll play a game." And I don't understand why we've not got that yet, because it should just be a case of I can link my Steam account and my Discord accounts together and it can just, like, integrate through the APIs that they've got,
Yeah.
and it'd just be such a nice feature to have. Again, it's not one of the like, "Oh, this is a deal breaker, and, I'm not gonna use my Steam Deck because of it," but and you can achieve it. There are Decky plugins to do it. You can install Discord as an app from the Discover store, but again, that's not a great experience either. Like, the app support, I think, in game mode could be vastly improved.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. And it's just one of those things where like it's great that the native option that Steam offers is good, and also like there's a culture of Discord that like is not replicable there, right? And like you use it in a different way, and I think that's something that like it's become a standard, and it's the more people embrace it, the more you know it's just a better user experience for the people that are already bought in, which is a lot of us, right? A lot of people that game online use Discord, and it's just like I don't want to have to jump through an extra hoop or use a proprietary thing. Like that's supposed to be the benefit of using a Steam product, right? Or using a Valve product is that like it is open source and it is going to let me just do what I want to do. And again, I guess to your point, a lot of these things are doable if you know how to jump through the hoops and use Decky plugins and everything. But like,
You don't want to have to do that though. Like, do you really want to install plugins to accomplish things that could potentially be integrated? I mean, a perfect example of Valve doing this exact thing was with Vibrant Deck, right? It was
yeah,
initially a plugin, and then they added the slider so that you can make your games and the operating system a little bit more saturated and vibrant if you
and,
wanted
and it
to.
just it makes the device more friendly to new users, which is something
Hmm.
that I think that like as they're trying to expand the user base of the deck, like you need to be able to appeal to people that have less knowledge or that have less desire to learn about this stuff, right? Because it's like, that's like the difference between, I think the fundamental difference between like PC gamers and console gamers, right? Is like there are folks that like for whom tinkering and playing with settings and maintaining a rig and like learning how to do things is part of the hobby. And there are others that like it's just not and they don't want to do that, right? It's like the difference between playing Minecraft creative or Minecraft survival, right? It's like it's two different types of person and two different communities, but at the end of the day, you're trying to sell this product to both of them. And you need to make it appeal to those normal people as much as possible. And things like being able to jump in and play the hot new multiplayer game on your friends or with your friends on Discord while you're like on the go. That's great. Like that's an attractive thing. And I think if there is
Hmm.
somebody who like travels a lot and has a dedicated group of friends that they game with or whatever. I could see why you would buy that and use that and consider that instead of a laptop or something else, right? And it's like, it's just, you want to minimize as many of those like, value prop or maximize those value propositions. I was going to say it a different way, but that's a better way to say it. As much as possible, right? Like you want to be able to have someone be like, I think I want this, and then have enough things that push them over the edge and have them make that.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, and I think another thing that would really help that is I know we're seeing games that have like Steam Deck profiles and things that you can just like open it up and it works. Obviously, The Last of Us Part 2 did that, or Part 1 did that, the remaster eventually. But for those legacy games, those older titles where that's they're not going to go back and patch them. A game that might be 2 or 3 years old that they're not going to bother. I really think the config sharing would help with that. I
Ugh.
know there are websites like Steam Deck HQ that you can go to, and they put the time and
Yeah,
effort
but
in, and they do a
again, it's
fantastic
like
job.
you want it in that you want it on the device.
Yeah, in the same way the
Controller
controller
configs
stuff
are
is.
so
Yeah,
good.
exactly.
It's so good. I can't believe how good that feature is that you can just like click in and you can look and see what they did. You can read people's reviews. It's a merit-based thing where people who use it vote on it. What the hell? Why not have that for configs, right? Like I think that's a thing I would want for like across the board, right? Like it would not just be useful for Steam Deck. It would be useful for everybody, but yeah, I mean, hell, like especially on deck. Like I remember, like that was like a thing when Starfield came out and like it didn't quite run. And then it was like, oh, like this person figured out a setting that works. And then it was
Mhm.
like that every website has an article about it. And you gotta, it's like, how nice would it be if you could just be like, oh, like this is the top upvoted one. Let me try that.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And then you could tweak it yourself, maybe re-upload it, maybe change some other settings, go into the quick access menu and fiddle with those toggles. That's really just how you get closer to that console experience where it's just like, oh, I don't want to have to deal with all of this.
I
I'll
think
just turn that on and it works.
I think if you actually like, if you really like took the time to make that system sophisticated, like to have a sophisticated tag system, it would make PC gaming overall, I think, uh, like less scary to newcomers, right? Like, I think that could be such an awesome tool if you could just be like, okay, I want to play this game and I have this graphics card and, and like
I
whatever.
think a big problem there is a lot of people don't know what the settings mean. Like
Yeah.
no one really knows. Does anyone who's not a real like PC gamer understand what global illumination is, or like
And that's the thing though, you wouldn't have to, because all you would have to
No, you
do
don't,
is
because it'll just tell you. It'll say
yeah,
these are the
like you could
settings that
literally
we've identified. Yeah,
yeah, right? Like and that could even be a thing. You could have a thing where it's like you push a button and it's like, okay, this is the graphics card you have, and you have this much RAM. Based on that, this is the one we think is gonna work the best, right? Like, I think that would be a huge, huge boon for Steam overall. And like the how good the controller config sharing is to me is like, man, like you gotta replicate this. You gotta find a way to do this with the other systems level settings that people got to play with because it's like that's such a big conversation whenever it's like what are the settings that you want and what are the compromises you want to make if you want it to run this way or that way or this way. And it's like it would just be great to get to just see all that conversation and like all that debate and you be able to make an informed decision without having to leave the game's page, and just let the
yeah.
community source those solutions for itself because I mean it
They
works.
do a good job. They do a really
Yeah.
good job. Like, yeah, we've seen that happen, like you said, with the controller stuff. We've seen websites pop up like Steam Deck HQ that does the hard work for it. Why not have it? There is a Decky plugin that will just like show you what settings to set, but it doesn't automatically do it. And I think we just want to go about one step further of that
Yeah.
full integration, which will really just ease things. And like we've been saying, these are all just quality of life improvements. All of the stuff we're talking about. I mean, there's one real dream feature of me. I mean, I know there's one thing that we're still waiting on. Valve promised Windows dual boot years ago. At this point, when it was
Yeah.
meant to come with the SteamOS 3.5 release. We've obviously not had that installer because they got wrapped up on other things. But for me, like a dream would be either Valve does a Game Pass competitor, or Microsoft brings Game Pass to
Game
Linux.
Pass, just bring Game Pass. I don't even wanna see Valve, like, do that. Like, I would rather those 2 companies be like, "Hey, like, we're not competitors, right? Like, we exist in different ecosystems, and let's benefit each other," right? Like, I
Yeah,
don't know
who
how that
knows?
works though,
What?
because, like, I don't like, you gotta imagine that that eats into Valve's sales in a way that they're not pleased about. They would need to get a piece of that pie because, like,
Well, they do with EA Play. Like EA Play, you can purchase through
Steam.
Steam,
Yeah.
and if you buy it through Steam, they get a cut. I'd imagine, if say you installed a game on your Steam Deck through Game Pass, maybe you get a little bit of a slice of whatever that monthly revenue was.
I think you'd have to have some kind of revenue share model like that because I think with the EA stuff, and correct me if I'm wrong, because when this happened, it was a while ago, so I might be fuzzy on the details, but, the way I remember that is that EA took a bunch of their games off of Steam or were not bringing new games to Steam anymore, right? And they were pushing EA Play, and that was, I think, why they reached that agreement is like, okay, well, if it's the difference of that the games are either not on Steam or it's like some kind of profit share, then obviously you're going to do that, right? But with Game Pass, Microsoft is independently making deals with these small games and, like getting
They're
indies.
doing wild stuff. While we've been on the air, they've, Toys for Bob have said they're going independent. So there's a lot of wild stuff going on over the Microsoft fence.
What? What?
Yeah,
What?
yeah, I
They gotta
know.
stop breaking news while I'm recording podcasts. What the hell? Okay, we
But
can
yeah,
deal with
you're
that right
you're
now.
right.
That's
Like
fine.
EA pulled a Ubisoft. They pulled all their games off, and then they're like, "Shit, no one's buying our games. We'll put them all back." It's been working well for Ubisoft.
But
Activision
you
did
know
the
what I
same
mean?
thing,
Like,
obviously.
with Game Pass, it's different because they're making deals with third parties. Like, I guess what you could do is you could have a Game Pass for Steam app that is, like, literally only
I don't think
Microsoft-owned
it needs to
games.
be an app. It should be, like, integrated in. Like, I buy a Game Pass subscription, I can click Game Pass in the store, and it shows me the games I can download, and maybe they're not all there. Maybe they come later than day and date that they
I
do
don't
on
know.
Xbox.
I think if you're gonna do something like that, it's either gotta be, like, all or not.
Then, yeah.
I don't think it necessarily has to be all or nothing, but I think it's like I could see a universe where they come up with a version of Game Pass that is no third party stuff, right? And like that's how you do it, where it's like you
Yeah, which would
can,
be fine.
you know, because then that way you're
I'd
not.
be more than happy with that. Like, give me the Forzas, the Call of Duties, the Diablos. Like, let me have all of those. Let me have the Starfield, and like, then I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah,
Microsoft's getting their revenue. I can play my games on Steam Deck and potentially cross save with my Xbox, and it really solves a lot of problems.
yeah. I just don't know. I guess it's one of those things where I guess I don't know if the value is there for Valve to do that. It's like I want it so bad, but it's just like I don't see how you justify like what did they get out of it unless it's a big revenue split between the two of them of like, yeah, you can put it on Steam, but we're taking 50% or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. But
I'd love to know the deal that they have with EA, but it's probably going to be a similar thing, right? So EA Play, you get a playlist of a collection of games. You can play like The Sims, Madden, Battlefield, but then you also can play like the trials for 10 hours. You
right,
can play
of the
them,
two games.
and you get 10% off all of the EA purchases on Steam.
Right.
So there's like a bunch of things. It really is a full integration with EA Play, and it's like 20 quid a year, $20 a year. It's like it's nothing. So if you play a lot of EA games, even if you probably play like one or two, it probably makes sense to subscribe to it. And I'd love to see this from more publishers. I'm surprised Ubisoft hasn't got on board with like Ubisoft Plus because I know you can get that now on both Xbox and PlayStation. It makes sense to bring that to Steam as well, especially as they're bringing all their games to Steam again. So I'd like to see it happen. It's something I've wanted for since the Steam Deck's kind of release. I even tried installing Windows on it and going down that route, but it's just not as nice. Windows is just not as nice, and if I can get it fully integrated into SteamOS and into my Steam Deck, then that's what I want. That's probably my big dream, my big wish.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it would be a huge benefit to deck owners, right? Like to be able to have the Game Pass library on your Steam Deck would be just out of this world, you know. It would be a
Mhm.
really really awesome addition, I think, like to the value of Game Pass, right? But I guess that's the question is like what is the value that it provides to Steam, right? Like it for the player, it sure provides value, but I don't know that Valve is getting enough out of that to like let a competitor kind of like into their walled garden, you know. Whereas like I think, you know, with EA, it's different, right? Because EA is a games publisher, right? But that doesn't, they're not really a competitor to Valve. Whereas like Windows gaming, like, is an alternative to Steam. And the idea that, you know, you'd want to,
Well, what if it's only on Steam Deck and Steam OS, and it's like, it's not there on
yeah,
Windows? I don't know, but like, does Microsoft really care? Or does Valve really care? Like, if it stops you, if it keeps you within Steam, stops you going over to the Windows Store and the Xbox app and doing all of that junk, and I can just have Steam as my storefront, and then while I'm there, I'm just oh, I might as
I
well
think
buy
it
some more
depends.
games.
I think it depends on how much money Microsoft is willing to give them for that privilege, right? Because I think if it is like, because I get what you're saying, where it's like, okay, well, if you can just get Game Pass on Steam, then, you know, that minimizes you going and using like PC Game Pass on the Microsoft store or whatever, right? But it's like, okay, but that also means that like, you know, when a game like trying to think of an example of a game that came out like cross like I don't know, like was Death's Door a day and date one? We'll say that. I don't know. Say it was.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
Right. Say it's that. That's
Or
a game
Tunic.
that if you're or Tunic, sure. If you're a PC gamer, right, and you don't have Game Pass, you'd buy that on Steam and they would get their, you know, their 30% cut of that revenue, right? Whereas like,
But that's again, that's a third party title. If we're saying no third party, it's only Microsoft
yeah,
Studios
if
titles.
it's that way, then I think it doesn't matter. Then it's like a whole other, because then it's you come back to the thing of like, well, they're not on the platform right now. So if we do this, Halo comes, this comes, that comes, whatever, great, and we'll take our 30%, and that's fine, right?
I mean, it's weird because like Microsoft does have their own thing, the Windows Store. No one's buying games over there. No one's really using the Xbox app. Everyone wants to use Steam. They've never taken their games off of Steam. They've always published them there as well for the same price. So I could see them. I could see them doing it. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, this has been a fun exercise putting together wish lists for
Definitely.
2024. I'd like to come back to this at the end of the year. No, not that this was any kind of predictions or anything,
Just like see
and
if
just
any of
see
it
if any
actually
of these
happens.
have come true. Yeah, see if any of this has actually happened, or if they surprise us with something completely different, which I would not be surprised from Valve.
Yeah, maybe when we do like our year in review, like we did, you know, for
Yeah, that'll be cool.
we'll look back on this one and be like, oh yeah, like I wonder if any of this stuff came to pass. Cool. Well, if you guys want to let us know what you're looking forward to or what your hopes and dreams are for 2024 in the world of Steam Deck, remember you can write into us in a bunch of different ways, all of which you can find over on flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find links to our Discord, our email address, where you can write in for the question block, suggest a main topic, just like we had today from Six Shot Ocelot. However you choose to get involved or write in or, you know, be a member of the community, we thank you for tuning into another episode of the Steam Deck podcast. Remember, again, flipscreen.games. Go over there, click on some stuff, show your support. However you choose to get involved, helps us out a lot. So, for the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week.